Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back into oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for Movie Oubliette, episode 17, the Cross Hemisphere podcast for forgotten fantastical films, with me, Dan, throwing a shrimp on the barbie at Christmas time in Melbourne, Australia.
And me, Conrad, roasting my chestnuts on an open fire in Cambridge, UK.
So, as mentioned, we will be discussing fantastical cinema, horror, sci-fi, and fantasy, because we just love to shit our pants with fear, marvel at the stars, and imagine we are big burly men in loincloths swinging battle axes at dragons.
Yes.
Conrad, how are you today? Almost Christmas?
Almost Christmas. Very excited here. Yes. Love Christmas. I'm a big fan. How about yourself?
Yes. Frantically doing last minute present shopping. But it'll pay off in the end.
Well, with my family, we always have a big family get together the weekend before Christmas. Oh. So I'm like having Christmas 1 round about now.
Right.
And Christmas 2 is a nice quiet affair.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So the franticness has happened already.
I just wanted to do a couple of shout outs. So we've got a new listener, Rodnisha Green, who has started listening to us and says we have great chemistry.
Oh, we do.
That's nice. Also a shout out to Chrisless in Canada, who is a long-time avid listener and has listened to every episode, I believe, up to date. So
wow.
Hello to Canada.
Well, we also put a shout out to our fans on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram asking for Ask Me Anything questions.
Ooh, what did we get?
We got so many that I thought that we could save most of them for a special New Year's episode that we will do.
Very nice.
But I've picked out the festive themed Ask Me Anything questions, and so that we can do those today.
Yeah.
We have one from Ellen.
Big shout out to Harvey the Bunny.
She asks, in a battle between Tim Allen in The Santa Claus, The Grinch, and the Home Alone Kid, who would win? You can choose between academic, physical, or interpretive dance battle. Dan?
I think
what's your pick?
Interpretive dance, I think, would definitely go to The Grinch, because he's a bit of a fancy fellow.
Yeah, he's a mover.
In terms of physical, I would actually say Kevin McAllister. He's got his wits about him. He's got his booby traps.
Yeah, he may be diminutive, but he packs a big punch with those booby traps, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm completely agreeing with you so far. Academic? I'm not sure on that one. Tim Allen never struck me as a particularly smart guy in The Santa Claus. In fact, that's how he gets into that situation to begin with.
I think Tim Allen would lose on all accounts, on all levels.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the Grinch should win that one. He is the Machiavellian evil planner, isn't he? So, yeah.
That's true.
I think he'd win academic. We also have a question from Serge of Cold Crash Pictures. Hello, Serge.
Hello, Serge.
He says, all of my favourite Christmas films seem to be American-made. It's a Wonderful Life, Funny Farm, Little Women, Die Hard, etc. And I'd like to expand my horizons. What are some of your favourite UK and Australia-based Christmas or holiday films? So this is a tricky one, I think, generally, because Hollywood is such an all-powerful force. I'm not sure there is much local movie making, much less there enough of it for there to be festive movie making. What about you?
Well, I can't actually recall any Australian or New Zealand Christmas films. I think we just don't have the tradition over here. So there's nothing that's very festive. Also, obviously, we're in the wrong season. That doesn't help. It's not very festive Christmassy if you don't have, snow and warm fireplaces. So, yeah. If there are any listeners out there that know of any Aussie or Kiwi Christmas movies, please let us know. And how about yourself, Conrad? Christmas movies from your part of the world?
Well, I think Charles Dickens probably created the prototypical Christmas story. I think A Christmas Carol is it. It's a story about somebody learning the true meaning of Christmas and the importance of other people over commercial concerns and so on. And I think most of the best Christmas films focus on that. So we have a few iterations of a Christmas Carol that we could point to. But probably the best example I could think of is Love Actually, which
of course.
is quite a different approach to a Christmas film because it does focus on the importance of relationships, but it's a bit of a portmanteau film with lots of different characters, and not all of their situations are sort of uplifting and jolly. Some of them are pretty sad, but there's some romance thrown in there as well. So I think that's a good one, which I've no doubt Serge has seen already. Other than that, the ones that he hasn't seen, I'd be ashamed for him to see, because we have this tradition for really, really ball-achingly shit Christmas sitcom movies. They're called the Nativity series, and if I just give you the titles, I think you'll get a sense of the quality at play here. So you've got Nativity with an exclamation point in 2009.
Okay.
Nativity 2, Danger in the Manger. Then Nativity 3, Dude, Where's My Donkey?
No.
And the recent Nativity Rocks, exclamation mark, This Ain't No Silent Night.
Oh, no.
They are awful, and I really don't want anyone to see them.
Oh, my God.
But if you think of like the British equivalent of an Adam Sandler movie, that's the sort of thing that you're going for. Low budget,
Ew.
common denominator comedy that most people just sit stony-faced throughout. So, yeah, I think one thing that we do particularly well is short animation films. So we're quite famous for the Raymond Briggs shorts. So The Snowman and the Snow Dog, and Father Christmas. I'm not sure if you've seen those.
Not sure what
Now, The Snowman is the one that We're Walking in the Air comes from, if you've heard that Aled Jones song. That's probably the closest we have to a sort of classic contribution to Christmas.
Okay.
That isn't shit. Anyway.
Talking about awful movies, so what will we be taking a look at today?
It's not a great vote of confidence. Let me go through this new access door that's just appeared into the Oubliette room, and then I'll find out. Door open.
Oh, it's a lot of beige. Someone's been redecorating.
Yeah, it's weird. Okay. Whoa! Good grief. Somebody's been chain smoking in here.
Ooh.
Okay. You, come here. Here we go.
Oh.
Just close this door again. Door closed. Right.
Right. What do you have here?
Well, I have a relatively new film, actually. It's a 2014 sci-fi comedy drama with a retro 70s futuristic style, directed by Jack Plotnick, based on a play written by himself and 4 other writers and members of the cast of the original show, I think.
Right.
And it stars Liv Tyler as a career-focused but lonely lieutenant commander who arrives at Space Station 76 to take over as co-pilot. But her attempts to fit in with the rest of the crew inadvertently acts as a catalyst to expose underlying tensions in their relationships. So her relationship with the captain, Patrick Wilson, is slightly frosty because he's threatened by her professionalism, and she keeps reminding him of her predecessor who left under mysterious circumstances, shall we say. And she attempts to befriend Ted, a lonely engineer who wants nothing more than to reconnect with his wife, Misty, mainly for the sake of their daughter, Sunshine. But Misty's a completely checked out mum who is more interested in carrying on an affair with Steve, Jerry O'Connell.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, you got to have a Steve. So basically, and it all comes to a head at the crew Christmas party. Hey,
Hey, Christmas.
there's the Christmas theme. At the crew Christmas party where all the secrets come out. And meanwhile, a meteor has been rushing towards them and they're headed for catastrophe. So
Oh, no.
that's our scene.
Sounds riveting.
Very exciting. And to discuss the film today, we have a very, very special guest.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear who you've booked today.
He's a big fan of the show, listen to every episode. It's my brother Gary.
Oh, I didn't know you had a brother.
Hello. Hello. Oh,
Watch
sorry.
out.
Got a lot of equipment in this room.
Oh, watch out.
Oh dear, sorry.
Just sit down.
Hello, Dean.
It's Dan.
Really pleased to be here.
Hi, Gary, is it? Well, nice to meet you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So today we're talking about Space Station 76.
Good. I've not seen that one.
Oh, you kind of need to have seen the film for
What,
us
before?
to discuss it.
Okay, well, I'll go and watch it now. I'll come back in a few minutes. What was it called again?
Space Station 76.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on
Right.
a second. Oh,
No,
sorry.
watch out.
Yeah, okay.
No, just leave it.
Okay, bye.
So, Conrad, this is not going to work. Do you have anyone else lined up?
I don't know, actually. Let's take a break and I'll go and check. Okay, welcome back. And I have found us a very special guest to join us today on our discussion on Space Station 76. He is an actor, writer, and producer, appearing in lots of indie films such as The Fifth Passenger and Benjamin Troubles, but he's mostly well known and loved for being Bad Boy Billy in One Tree Hill and Borg Boy Icheb in Star Trek Voyager. I'm very pleased to welcome to the show Manu Intiraymi.
Yay! I know that guy.
Thank you for joining us. It's really exciting to have you on the show.
Oh, it's good to be here. I got to watch an incredible movie. I really enjoyed the movie we're going to dissect.
Yes, so you chose the movie for us. Perhaps you could give us some insight into why, or maybe it was just like a pin in a list. I don't know.
Well, it was a pin in the list, really. Basically, we started the conversation with, like, what's a good holiday movie that's lost? I could only think of, like, movies that either weren't lost or movies that were lost but then found again, and nothing that really was like on the edge here. And then you sent me a list of movies. Why don't we check out this, one of these particular films? And so I went down the list and made the call that it was too early for me, because this was like last week. It was too early for me to go straight Christmas. So I jumped to I jumped towards the sci-fi, since Star Trek and all that. I went, why not? Let's look at a sci-fi. And I really enjoyed Space Station 76. I hope more people get a chance to see it because of this show. And it was a really fun movie.
It's an interesting one. I certainly hadn't seen it before. Dan, had you seen it before?
No, I'd never even heard of it.
Which is strange because it's not that long ago, and it's got an incredible cast. When you look at the lineup, you've got Liv Tyler and Patrick Wilson, who I love, and Matt Bomer, and Jerry O'Connell, and even Keir Dullea, who of course was David Bowman in 2001: A Space Odyssey. So it's not an indistinguished cast for sure.
No, it's I think somehow I remember vaguely seeing a trailer for it back when it came out, and I remember thinking they aren't marketing this right. And it was somehow that brilliant comedy that the film pulls off. It's a really touching movie, actually. It makes you care for everybody on the station, and it's sexy, and it's that sort of like B-movie sci-fi thing is a hard thing to sell.
Yeah, and it's an interesting combination of elements as well, isn't it? Because it's kind of going for a 70s version of the future in 2014. I think some people were hoping when they saw the trailer, this is going to be like Ron Burgundy in space, which it definitely isn't. And then somebody else said that it's kind of like the ice storm in space because it takes this idea of 70s suburban ennui, that whole Ang Lee drama, and sort of sets it sort of in space instead, just to make it even more lonely and isolated, and put these characters in an even more strange situation where they can sort of go at each other. And I think that's probably a better comparison. You're right. I think the marketing, the trailer made this look as though it was going to be an out-and-out slapstick comedy, and that's not what it is.
While watching it was much more of a kind of look into very quite broken, flawed characters with substance addiction, whether it be alcohol or smoking. There's a tremendous amount of smoking in this film.
There's a lot of smoking.
Especially around small children and babies.
Oh, it's the 70s. It's the 70s, man.
And it was the 70s, yes, it definitely was. So, I mean, I think it's much more interesting to look at in terms of the characters. And it almost felt like it wasn't really a sci-fi. It was more of a drama that had kind of, as Conrad, you mentioned, like that sort of sense of isolation and being quite detached. And also being quite detached as characters as well.
Yeah, it succeeded in really making you feel bad for the whole crew. Just these poor guys. Somehow trapped in the 70s. They never really laid down the law how that worked either, but they were like, you know, they were stuck with 70s technology and the Game Boy glove and all that stuff too. And the clothing. It's like maybe it's 40 Earth years away from the new cycle or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Although they are very image conscious, or at least Donna is very concerned about consumerism. She's really excited that Steve has got this promotion to go to Starship 8, and she says 4 stories of consumer goods, and it's real exclusive, if you know what I mean. And yeah, so she's...
Yeah, the 80s are coming. She's getting a boot up to the next century.
Yeah, she's getting ready. And she even refuses the little girl, Sunshine, wanting to visit their new baby because she says, oh, you have germs and you may infect the baby. And then you cut to inside her room and she's actually ignoring the baby, having a cigarette and browsing the latest fashions on her Viewmaster because... That's how you get the latest fashion catalogs.
Yes.
In Space Station 76. There are lots of really great details like that are sort of quite satirical. And what's interesting is that they comment as much on our times now as they do on the 70s vision of the future then. So it still works on both levels, I think.
Yeah, it's relevant. It's genius level comedy. Watching a comedy where you actually really care for each of the characters in the movie, even as flawed as they all are. And it's done in such a simple way that it makes you think that not a lot went into it, but the truth is, like, a lot went into that movie.
I was reading up about it, and a lot of people compared it to a TV show I've never heard of called Space 1999, and obviously Star Trek as well. Like, what were your kind of takeaways from how it compared to obviously being on Star Trek?
I felt the what it feels like to be dated, on like a known for a show, Voyager, if you go back and look at it. So I could sort of relate to just being like an old has-been sci-fi actor stuck in their world. The corridors, the being stuck on a space station thing. I did that for a couple of years. I remember you don't really realize how good the movie is until it's over. The same thing for being on Star Trek as it was watching Space Station 76. Like, you're just watching this very strange film that's great in so many ways, and then all of a sudden the credits roll and you're like, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Because I look back in those years really fondly of, like, it was the one cast that I came on to work as a guest star where I felt immediately like I was accepted and a part of the team. And all those actors went out of their way to make me feel comfortable and to make me feel welcomed. And that was the one thing about Voyager that I was blown away by, because I've done a lot of guest star work where you show up and you're just there for those 2 weeks, and they're not going to see you again, so they don't really give you the time of day. All the boys and girls on that show they were down to rehearse during the off time and run lines or help you with something else you were auditioning for. Or everybody was really kind on that set, and Voyager definitely had a family to it. And to this day, we all still hang out for the most part. So.
Oh wow.
Hey, Conrad, do you want a coffee? Oh, sorry, are you live?
Yeah, I'm right in the middle of an episode.
Oh, Dean, hi.
Hi, Gary.
I'll go out.
So the director, Jack Plotnick, talks about trying to give us the 70s version of the future that we never got to see. You mentioned that Voyager seems dated now. What do you think is particularly 90s about Voyager as you look back on it?
I couldn't help but just to flash on the episode. I think it's one of the first episodes where they get lost, or they go down to Venice Beach, and they're all wearing these really terrible 90s outfits. Or that episode in particular is so 1990s television. I guess maybe the safety of the writing too. I mean, I always thought Voyager could be a really funny show, but they were never. I think every time they tried to do comedy on Voyager, I felt like they really failed because they were too scared to break any codes of the 90s, I guess. I think Voyager was a great show in many ways, but if they would have been able to do things without it being cliche, like the cliche romances of Voyager and the lame attempts at comedy, I thought were very 90s.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek always tried to be very forward-looking in its representation, but I mean, certainly it never had, for example, a gay character in the show. It tried to touch on it in different ways, by having androgynous characters and trying to deal with it that way. But it never sort of touched on, it went as far as perhaps you might have hoped on those sexual politics. And I think the sexual politics in Space Station 76 are particularly interesting because the sexual politics are very much of the 70s in this movie. And I was trying to think as I was watching it, what are we gaining from being that regressive? Or are we trying to say that things really haven't changed? Because you have the captain is gay, but very conflicted about it. In fact, it ruined his relationship with the original co-pilot who Liv Tyler's character, Jessica, is replacing. So you have that going on. And there's an awful lot of discussion about gender roles and how Jessica shouldn't be a lieutenant commander that's in such a responsible position because she's a woman. Because in something like Anchorman, they do it and they push it to such a degree where Steve Carell's worried that women will attract bears. It's ridiculous. So it's kind of saying 70s sexual politics were crazy and this is how crazy they are and we can laugh at them now. Whereas I don't think that's what Space Station 76 was doing at all. I think it was doing something much more subtle than that.
There was a lot of definitely gender roles. And in terms of also, it wasn't just the men saying to Jessica she should know her place. It was also the woman saying to Jessica that she should know her place.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, Donna even says at one point, I hope she wears a bra. That's all I'm saying. And you think, this is the only issue. It's very strange to hear that kind of position coming from a character in 2014. Yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts from looking at sexual politics from a 70s stance. I'm wondering what it's trying to say, maybe.
Yeah, well, I unfortunately think that it's trying to say that in a lot of ways we haven't made any leaps or bounds or anything that we should be that proud of as a society, unfortunately. I feel like we're just getting started, and I think that's kind of what Space Station 76 is saying. Like, you've got this, the lead gay character is a very macho, like Burt Reynolds type. He's trying to be, is not gay as he can be until it's time to jack off. I think that's what it's saying. I hate it, but I don't think we've really come all that far.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing about the film that did bother me, that it it almost gets a bit puerile in a few places. So you have Jessica arrives on the station, and after the computer stops announcing every time a door opens and closes, which I thought was a really amusing, gentle satire of the genre. The first thing that she has to do is submit herself to a medical exam. Seems to consist of nothing more than her breasts being scanned and then her being vaginally probed,
Yes.
which sort of gets straight in there. No blood test or anything. Just, again, you sort of think, oh, this is just exploitative. But then it has a point, so you kind of forgive it because there's a very important character point that comes out as a result of this. I'm not so sure you can say the same about the later scene where Ted's Power Glove replacement hand goes crazy and starts rhythmically palpating Jessica's breast. I'm not sure how you can excuse that as anything other than the sight gag that it is, but it actually is quite funny. So
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's really, the glove is really like his inner lustial desires. He's a really good guy, but inside he wants to bone just like everybody else. And I think that glove is like his a peek into his id.
In Power Glove form.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love that he has these fantasies where he visualizes a naked woman floating in space in what appears to be like a Yes album cover.
Uh-huh.
There are like blue and purple stars, and and at one point the head on it changes to Liv Tyler, to Jessica. So the fantasy progresses to her. But then later she has a scene where she says to him, have you ever felt like you're floating alone in space and there's nobody there for you? And I thought, that's really interesting because it has instantly humanized this fantasy figure of the naked woman floating in space. All of a sudden, he can see how that feels from her perspective, almost, that this is something that, she uses as a visualization of her own loneliness and a detachment, whereas he's just thinking about her as like a sex object. And I thought that was really fascinating how that particular image was reflected back in a very different way.
It was a very sexy movie. That I just can't. I think being that it's the 70s and it's looking at sexual desires and all these people are trapped on this station with what they have and they're trying to make their way. It was really fun in that way. Like I think of this. Maybe it's just because I'm like really horny right now or something. I don't know. But I think back to that movie and I just think like, God, that was a sexy movie. I had a crush on like every character in that movie. They were all beautiful and they were all beautifully broken. And that's what all like really classic movies do, is they make you care for how flawed we are as human beings. When a movie can make you love characters that are that broken, like I feel so sorry for the girl that she's such a self-centered twat at the same time, but I absolutely adore her and feel for her, the woman that has to go to the robot and get all the pills and is neglecting her husband and everything about her life and her reality. She just wants to veg out. But you feel for her, it's like you could immediately just hate her. I think the point in the end is to like accept our flaws and laugh at our flaws and love ourselves anyway.
I'm gonna be totally opposite and say that I actually found most of the characters not that interesting.
Really?
I found Jessica and Ted and Sunshine great, and I found a lot of the scenes that they were in, there were some really touching moments and some very lots of chemistry. But I found all the other characters very detached, kind of a bland kind of way. I found like the captain, although he was going through a lot of inner torment and kind of dealing with the sexuality, I found him mostly because they put a lot of humor in his character that really derailed the emotional sort of connection that you had with him. So he was trying to deal with his sexuality, but then he would try to kill himself, but then they would put a gag in like, oh, he tries to electrocute himself in the bath and the space station prevents him. And then he tries to gas himself in the engine room and the space station prevents him. And it almost felt like it could have been a very powerful moment, but then they just put a funny haha gag in there. I don't know. I felt the tone of the movie was unclear because there were moments that were funny, but then there were moments that were just a bit sad and depressing, and it didn't seem to mesh as well as it could have. I'm not saying that you can't have both tones in terms of like Wes Anderson movies do it really well. Those are incredibly depressing movies, but they're incredibly hilarious movies at the same time. So it's not like it can't be done well, but I'm not sure whether Space Station 76 did it for me.
No, I thought it felt very much like a Wes Anderson movie.
There are similarities for sure. I mean, I thought with the captain, there was one very important scene that doesn't follow the path that you mentioned, which is the masturbation scene. So
Yes.
he calls his former love who has left the station. They have an argument essentially because all he's asking him to do is to continue to cover up their relationship and because he fears career implications. But he takes that holographic video call and he edits it so that it just loops with the guy saying, I want you to make love to me, Glenn. I want you to make love to me, Glenn, and then masturbates to it. But the thing is, that scene is not played. There's no punchline to that scene. No. And watching it, I just felt incredibly sad for him. I just thought how desperately sad that's to be put into a position where that's the only satisfaction he can get. I just felt a lot of empathy for him at that point. So I thought that was very well done.
I agree that there was a well done scene. I felt like they tried to do that in other scenes that didn't work. Like there's the scene with Misty talking to the psychiatrist robot thing. And then she breaks down and then the robot realizes that she's getting too close to him and so starts going berserk and alarms go off. And then she turns him off and then hugs him. And I think that was supposed to be a powerful scene, but it was just a little bit ridiculous to me because she's hugging a 10-inch plastic robot toy thing.
But the whole movie is ridiculous. I mean, it's a ridiculous film. That's the fact that you can get real emotions through this ridiculous comedy is pretty amazing. It's not an easy thing to do. That's what I kept thinking when I was watching this movie. Is that wow, people don't know how hard these people worked. Everybody on this movie, every artist, the set designers, the little trivial things like the robot cleaning in the background, and I just I don't know. It was a much more complex movie than it seems like on the surface. Yeah,
for sure. And I think in that scene, on first viewing, I didn't find, because I watched it twice, and on first viewing, it didn't hit me. It was on second viewing when I knew the full arc of her character, when I realized this is the only person that she has to talk to. And it gets to the point where, because it's no longer interacting with her in a way that she needs, she has to turn it off and then talk to an inanimate object. Because that's all she's left with. And on the second viewing, I actually did find that just crushingly sad. Because I'd had time to reflect on what this actually meant in that context.
Okay.
So...
Wait, Conrad, have you seen my hemorrhoid cream? Oh, sorry, are you live?
Yes.
Hi, Dean.
Hey, Gary.
Bye.
I mean, I think my biggest issue with the movie that I had was it was a stage play to start off with, and I felt like it wasn't adapted to film as well as it could have been. It still felt like I was watching a stage play to me. All the scenes were always in one room. There wasn't a lot of movement in terms of camera work. There was a lot of like two shots, and I don't know. I felt like I would have enjoyed it more as a stage play than a film.
I always really there's almost never a time where they do a stage play and they adapt it to film that I don't like it. I can't think of a time that I haven't liked it. I feel like good theater always works well on the screen.
It's often a criticism that's leveled at films that are based on a stage play, that it hasn't escaped its stage roots and that it isn't cinematic enough to justify its existence. And I've always wondered whether, well, surely it can just be what it is. It doesn't need to transform necessarily into something else. There are various examples. Dilemma for Murder, Hitchcock is probably one of the most famous ones that I can think of. If you have others in mind, I'd be interested to hear which ones you're thinking of.
Well, just two that popped into mind, and I can't think of the name of the second one. It was with Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson. It's about basically a Christian, hardcore Christian, and a complete non-believer. The Christian saves the non-believer at a platform at a train station who tries to kill himself, and then he brings him home to his house. And the whole play is just those two inside the house talking to each other about God and the future and whether or not the other man is going to be okay. It's a brilliant play, and because it's a brilliant play, it's a brilliant movie. You've got these two actors that really just sit in one room for 2 hours. And it's engaging and it's powerful, and at the end you don't know if the guy's going to be okay or not. It doesn't really go anywhere, but that's the beauty of it. Is it's like and Fences, just came out a year ago or so ago. I thought was just a beautiful play that very much deserved the film that it became. I didn't have any idea, in fact, until you just said it, that it was based on a play. I didn't see that. Usually I do.
Okay.
Did you know before you went in to watch it that this was based on a play?
I think I did, but I normally can pick it. Like, when I watched Fences, I didn't realize it was a play, and while watching it, it felt like I was watching a play. Maybe it's a personal thing, but I think if it is going to be adapted into a movie, I feel like I want something more. Like, Fences was great, amazing acting, incredible cast, very well shot as well. But for me, I wanted a bit more cinematically. And I felt the same for Space Station 76. I just wanted maybe some more interesting camera work, some more cinematography. It felt very like it was on a soundstage. Like, I mean, obviously most movies are filmed on sound stages. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but for this film, it felt, I didn't feel immersed. It felt like I was watching a play on a stage with sets, and everything just seemed a little bit fabricated, I guess, and kind of forced.
I think they did that on purpose, though. I think the fabricated and forced thing it was a choice. I don't think it was... I can't imagine that it would have been done so poorly that it wouldn't have been a choice. That would have been really, really bad filmmaking. I feel like that was part of the 70s thing, was like, oh, the set might fall down behind us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the approach was, definitely, to make it feel like cheap in 70s and of the time. But I felt like they could have maybe gone a little bit further. I don't know. I don't know. I think tonally, like, if they'd gone full slapstick, maybe it would have worked with the cheap sets, almost like, Blazing Saddles or something like that. Just like a ridiculous Mel Brooks kind of movie. But because there was so many kind of serious moments, it just felt unbalanced to me. I don't know.
I thought the sense of detachment that you get from it was very deliberate. I felt like that was exactly what they were going for in how you were supposed to be feeling about it, that it is kind of cold and awkward. And I think in a way it was to make you feel certainly what because Jessica is the audience relation, the character that the audience gets to relate to, because she's the newcomer, so everything gets to be the world is introduced to the viewer via her. And the sense of isolation and awkwardness that she feels, I think, is definitely intentional. I think that's probably what they were going for, and it works for me. And I also recognize the limitations of the budget that they were working with.
Now it's time for Random Trivia. And my piece of random trivia...
Oh, Gary, I didn't know you were here. I guess you can join in. What's your random trivia?
Did you know that the average family in modern times owns more motor vehicles than a family back in medieval times?
Yeah, that's pretty obvious, actually. And what's that got to do with the film?
Oh, is it supposed to be just about films?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll just wait here. I'll go and watch one. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, Gary.
Grab your stockings, it's trivia time. What have you got in the festive treat bag for us tonight, Dan?
The trivia I have for this wonderful movie is the opening track of the film is a song called Utopia by Todd Rundgren, who is in fact Liv Tyler's stepfather. And growing up, she actually thought he was her father until she found out that her father was in fact Steve Tyler from Aerosmith. So yes, I think there are 4 tracks of his music in this film as well.
Yes, helps to have family connections for great tracks.
Yeah, especially from the 70s. Yeah,
Yeah.
very ideal.
I actually discovered a piece of trivia that I thought was quite fun.
Yes?
So Liv Tyler has size 10 feet, which
Okay.
is pretty amazing.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, it's bigger than me. So they were trying to find period shoes for her to wear on the movie, and they couldn't find anything that would fit. And she remembered that she had a pair of 70s style white boots that she bought when she was in Milan, but she'd never worn them. They were just like in the back of her garage or something.
Oh, okay. Right.
So she dug them out. They've been sitting there for 20 years and they fit perfectly and they suited the movie. So the boots that she's wearing throughout this movie are a pair of boots that she bought in Milan 20 years before and hadn't worn since.
That's pretty handy. And I did notice those boots as well.
They were great boots. Yeah. So well done, Liv Tyler. She brought a lot to this movie.
Oh, she did.
And that's our trivia.
I guess I was just really stunned by the simplicity of the comedy and that it was working, because I just recently did a couple of space B movies that were trying to be bad on purpose. And when you make a movie bad on purpose, it's really difficult to then swing back around to good. Usually you just end up making a really bad movie. And these guys, you know, really made a movie bad on purpose and made it work. And that's a feat in and of itself.
Okay, I'm going to go back to my Wes Anderson reference again. I feel like Wes Anderson does make kind of purposely bad movies, like Life Aquatic, for example. There are special effects in that are purposely made to look a bit tacky and ridiculous. But it has a sense of uniqueness to the film and sense of it's got its charm and it's got its kind of quirkiness. And I didn't feel there was much quirkiness in this film. It was more kind of hammy jokes and then a lot of serious moments as well. But it didn't have anything that was really uniquely, wow, I've never seen a character like that before. I felt like I'd really seen all these characters before.
Yeah, the effects, certainly, if I could touch on that's certainly an area where I thought they might have made a little misstep, because they're using CG effects, and because, well, that's the easiest thing to do now.
Yeah.
They're CG effects that aren't great. Some of them are good. There's certainly the exterior shots of the space station with views into the windows and them inside. Those all work really seamlessly. Those work great. But some of the flyby stuff with the shuttle arriving and the meteor that's heading towards them, you can tell the resolution, the complexity of the models is not quite there. And I was looking at it and thinking, you know, I just wish that they'd been able to do model work for this.
Yeah.
And done something really of the era. But, you know, I guess that kind of stuff is, you know, nobody does it anymore. So it's kind of difficult to get anybody to do it.
Yeah, I did feel like the CG kind of took me out of it because it was so very of the 70s and seeing all the CG stuff was it definitely stood out.
Yeah, it was more computer graphics of the 90s, it seemed like.
Yeah. I mean, I think they were going for deliberately bad as well.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. Like some of those the spaceships flying through, it like you said, it did look like 90s CG. But I don't know whether it worked. What were your thoughts, Manu?
Yeah, definitely the CG was really really weak. I liked the meteor strike though when the meteor actually there's a shot where when the ice hits the rock and shatters into a bunch of different pieces. I thought that actually was model work. I don't know how they did that shot, but it was really beautiful when it shattered into.
There was a beautiful shot, actually. Yes,
And then as they track the meteor and it gets closer and closer, it got cheesier and cheesier. But so it was kind of, I guess that was the problem, is that it was a mixed bag, you know. But it didn't take me out of the film, because from the get-go they kind of let me know that I wasn't here for A-level CGI and that it was going to be a mixed bag. And as soon as I let that reality go and went, okay, I'm going to see some cheesy things, then I got into the characters in the story.
Okay. Another thing that I felt could have been, I don't know, could have enhanced the movie a little bit better was the score was interesting. It was a lot of, I guess, 70s prog rock, would you say? And every time they showed the meteor, I wish there was something more sonically, something a little bit more life-threatening.
So is the metaphor just straight up what it is? I mean, it's just death. Meteor is just death.
I don't know. I thought the meteor represented Liv Tyler's character, Jessica, because I was looking at, she does the voiceover at the beginning where she talks about, she compares life to floating along in an asteroid field and how asteroids can go on indefinitely and in a group and never touch each other. But people aren't like asteroids, they change. So they can't exist in this constant state. The moment when she clashes with the captain, really goes head to heads with him, is when you cut back to the asteroid field and the asteroid breaks apart from the rest of the group and starts flying towards the space station. So to me, the asteroid is Jessica. I mean, there's also a scene where everybody else is making love, but possibly to the wrong person. And there's a really good montage where I think Ted is masturbating in the marital bed and Misty gets out and just walks out in disgust with him. And you cut to Jessica, and Jessica is actually up late at night playing asteroids on a computer game. So I thought to myself, this is thematically what it is. That I thought Jessica is asteroid, asteroid is Jessica, and it all comes to the head in that Christmas party. There's our Christmas theme. The asteroid finally comes and hits them, but luckily it just destroys the shuttle that was due to take Steve and Donna off to their new exciting promotion, and just spreads all of Donna's consumer goods out into space. Although fortunately not the mother-in-law, who is still frozen and safely stowed aboard because Donna was too selfish to load her in the first ship to go out. And so it's sort of like she finally hits, this all comes to a head in this Christmas party because of Jessica's presence has made all of these different underlying tensions boil up and explode. But it doesn't destroy them. It just glances off them in a way that actually makes them reassess. So the next thing that you see is Donna just doesn't care about all these possessions she's lost. The next thing you see her doing is hugging her baby. So she finally seems to be caring about the things that are more important, her own family. And Ted and Jessica have this lovely moment in the atrium where they're staring up at the stars together and they look at each other and smile, and you think there's either a friendship or a romance blossoming here. Either is, great, at least they're happy. So you just get a sense that the asteroid is her and she's come in and blasted them, but it hasn't destroyed them and they can all move on.
Okay.
That's just me doing my grand textual analysis thing that I always do.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree with Manu as well, being that it symbolizes death, because they kind of, like you said, they reassess themselves and realize that life is more important and their loved ones are more important and they should put their lives together. Also, the fact that the meteor hits that container of material possessions and that's not important, it could have hit the space station, they could have all died. So I think there is that mortality aspect as well.
Yeah, that was the surface thing. I always see the surface thing. I never get down to the levels where your smart people get.
3 years of film school, that's what that is. Sorry. It just comes back to haunt me and I start doing my textual analysis thing all over again. But it's, you're both right. It's both things, isn't it? And, and I suppose that's quite a festive theme, isn't it? That forget the material, focus on people and relationships. I think that's sort of...
And family.
So...
Yes.
And family, yes. So Space Station 76 is a Christmas movie.
It is in the end.
We can say.
It is a Christmas party.
It is, I think so. Yeah. Because this is raging on Twitter. Manu, I was going to ask you what your stance is on the great Die Hard debate. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know there was a debate. I mean, come on. Of course it's a Christmas movie. And Die Hard 2 is also a Christmas movie. It also takes place during Christmas, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It takes place during Christmas, but does somebody learn the true meaning of Christmas? That's my sort of litmus test.
Yes, I think they do.
For Christmas. Either John McClane learns the true meaning of Christmas by dropping Alan Rickman off a building.
Yes, I think he does.
Well, isn't there a scene where McClane comes running back to his wife and the family and the kid? Doesn't that happen at the very end? And isn't there snow in L.A. or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the importance of getting back to your family and the ones you love through grueling terrorists. And
that's the true meaning of Christmas. Tolerating the ones you love.
Sounds good to me.
Coming to you live from the movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
Okay, listeners, it's just me and Conrad now, and it's time for the Mobley Awards, which have been roasting in the oven for 3 hours. So this is where we nominate a bunch of our favorite things in a number of jolly categories. So we always started off with our favorite quote, Conrad, and what was yours?
Oh, my favorite was from the opening, which really had the sort of grandest speech from Liv Tyler as Jessica talking about the asteroids in space. I think we mentioned it. Mm-hmm. And she says, "The more you try to create a paradise, the more you will resent the prison."
Oh, wow.
Wow. So that's quite thought-provoking stuff,
That
and
is.
very much tied into the theme of, in the 70s, everyone moving out to the suburbs and creating these perfect consumerist paradises for themselves and being deeply, deeply miserable.
Right.
How about you? Did you have a favorite quote?
So my favorite quote is a lot less thought-provoking. So it's when Misty, the blonde character, is having her session with the psychiatrist robot, and she's just divulged a whole bunch of very emotional information to the robot, and the robot replies, "I'm going to up your dosage of Valium to as much as you like."
Yeah. And I love that there's like a break in the recording, so it's obvious that there's like a space for whatever amount could be put in, you know.
Yeah.
They've recorded lots of amounts. So
Yeah.
I am going to increase your Valium to as much as you like. Hair and costume.
Donna had a bunch of very beautiful outfits. I think I actually watched this with my wife, Hannah. Hi, Hannah. And there was one dress in particular that had these huge, long, flowing sleeves.
Very 70s.
And you?
Well, I was admiring Misty's Farrah Fawcett blow-dried curls that sort of curled away from her face. I thought she pulled it off really well. It was a lovely recreation of that classic Farrah Fawcett look that she didn't have in Saturn III, which was quite disappointing.
Yeah, it seems like a missed opportunity, but oh well.
She's famous. She's got one thing, and she didn't use it.
Oh dear. So, most, I guess, 70s moment? Or should we say 2010 moment? I don't even know. 70s?
Just the white sci-fi walls with the curved edged square panels in them. I love the
Yes.
fact that the first time you see them, Sunshine is roller skating along, or the roller skates themselves, a bit of a 70s cliche, but she's sort of roller skating along, crayoning along these beautiful white walls. And you think it's just a wanton act of graffiti, but actually she's helping Jessica find her living quarters. So it's actually something that just seems completely frivolous but has a point to it.
I also noticed there's one of those little robots just going around cleaning up the crayons behind.
Yeah, afterwards, which Manu mentioned actually. Yeah, it's lovely
yes.
little details like that, which is really cool.
I mean, most 70s, I guess, would also will be relevant for most sci-fi moment was the cockpit just being full of flashing lights and screens just blinking for no reason. I did love the joke that they had at the start where he pushes a button and there's this countdown and it pops up and it's just a cigarette lighter. And he just lights a cigarette.
Yeah, that's a really great subversion of the genre cliche.
Yes. Before we move on, I want to quickly touch on another cliche sci-fi moment. All the doors were sliding and they made the stereotypical sci-fi sound of
Yeah, and the ship's computer announces door open, door closing. It's just completely pointless.
yeah. So, favorite scene. What was yours, Conrad?
I really liked the scene where Jessica and Ted were smoking cannabis together. Because
Yes.
it just seemed like a lovely, genuine scene of friendship. You could see their relationship developing. And then the watering sprinklers come on because they're in the atrium with all the plants. And I thought it was just sort of a genuine ray of sunshine in the middle of a lot of beige.
That's true. My favorite scene was the final kind of big confrontation scene at the Christmas party with all of the people exploding and yelling at each other. For me, that was the scene that actually had acting, like a moment to actually use their skills as actors and to really let rip. And every single actor in that scene was very compelling.
Yeah,
very powerful scene. A lot of themes brought up and just good acting.
How about effect? Did you have a favorite special effect in this movie?
I think Manu mentioned it before, but the asteroids as they were kind of flying through space, very beautiful kind of imagery.
Mine was actually a relatively simple one. It was the hologram that Daniel, the captain's ex-lover, appeared on. Because it's such a lovely 70s vision of what a hologram was, which he's supposed to be sort of three-dimensional and existing inside this plastic tube, but he's not to scale, and he's got this sort of spectrum across him. Yeah, so I really liked that. And no matter which angle they shot it, you could see that they'd taken all the different angles of him. So yeah, I really liked that. Sound. Did you have a favorite sound effect in this movie?
No.
No, I didn't think you would. Well, for me, I really loved the moment when the meteor hit the shuttle and sent all of the consumer goods flying through space, because it was silent. So I was just taking my cue from you saying in our last episode that your favorite sound was no sound at all. And I do like it when they do that in space, because in space no one can hear your luggage being smashed up by a meteor.
No.
And I liked that. I thought that was good.
Okay, last category, funniest scene.
For me, the award has to go to Keir Dullea, who was Dave Bowman on 2001.
Yes.
He disconnected Hal, he conquered the monolith and was reborn as a star child.
Yes.
But at the age of 82, he cannot have a successful video call with his daughter because he cannot line his face up with the camera. And I found that hilarious because it didn't speak to the 70s so much as it spoke to, I expect, a lot of millennials' experience of trying to FaceTime with their mothers. Oh, wait, that's sexist. Their parents. It's not just mothers. As this demonstrates, it's fathers and grandfathers too. And I was just in stitches because he kept putting his face in ridiculous places. And yeah, she really wanted to tell him that she was low and she needed to talk to him. But by the time she'd got his face in an approximate position on the screen where she could see him, she just gave up and said, everything's fine.
Yeah. I completely forgot about that scene. It was, 100% hilarious.
And that's our Mooblies.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hey, didn't we lock that door?
I had an idea.
How's he keep getting in?
Dean.
Gary?
I know you're into sound and stuff. I myself have been mastering the guitar for about 20 years now.
Yep.
So I thought it'd be really good if you guys had let me play the jingle before the next bit.
No, Gary, could you please
Oh,
put the...
great. Here goes. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, no. Conrad, make it stop.
Nailed it.
Okay, we are back for the final verdict. Should this film be pumped full of Valium and cryogenically frozen for eternity in the Oubliette, or should it be released to roam the galaxy forever? All right, our guest today, Manu, what do you think?
Oh, we absolutely have to take Space Station 76 and save it from the Oubliette. It's a very simple film on its surface, but if you get past the idea that films have to be complex and you just enjoy it for what it is, it's a marvelous, fun, it pulled so many emotions from me. That's it. I just think Space Station 76 has to live on. And in fact, it would surpass the Oubliette. It'd fly right past it because it's in space and it's sci-fi. So it's a touching film and super, super cheesy. And just the fact that somebody went and tried to make a movie bad on purpose that was also good and touched you and succeeded, that's enough to save it from the Oubliette.
Okay. Dan, what did you think? I have a sense that you're going to go another way.
So I get the intention of the film, and I like the themes, the underlying themes, and there were some great characters. I really like Jessica, and Sunshine was surprisingly really, really good as a kid actor. But I felt like a lot of the comedy fell flat for me, and a lot of the touching scenes, there just weren't quite enough of them, and for me it was a bit of a miss on lots of levels. So I would actually say to throw it back in the Oubliette.
Have you ever made a movie?
I have. I'm a sound designer. I'm involved with lots of films.
Man, how can you bag on a movie like this? I don't understand. That's such a cold and icy thing to do, to throw a film into an oubliette. Oh, that's so cold. There was generous goodness in this movie. How could you do that?
So, I mean, we have a final vote from Conrad. So you are the deciding vote. What did you think?
I am the deciding vote. And I have to say, the first time I watched it, I could see where you're coming from, Dan. I was sold on the idea of it being Ron Burgundy in space, and I was so disappointed that wasn't what I got, although I started to appreciate what there was in terms of it being this look at all these lonely people and what's happening in their lives. When I watched it a second time and I was no longer waiting for Ron Burgundy in space, I actually did enjoy it a lot more and started to see a lot more in terms of what it's doing, talking about sexuality and sexual relationships and motherhood. There's a strong motherhood theme in there with we didn't mention this, but the whole thing with the gerbils where the mother keeps eating all the gerbil babies. And Jessica is offered up as a surrogate mother for Sunshine's last gerbil baby. Of course, Jessica can't have a child herself. So I started to realize that there is a lot going on in this movie, and it does it in a very subtle, understated way that sort of has an effect on you subliminally and you don't realize. And that's certainly on second viewing. I got a lot more out of it. So with that in mind, and also bearing in mind that I'm a huge fan of Manu and had a big thing for Icheb when I watched Voyager, I'm going to be completely biased and side with him, and I'm going to let it go.
Okay.
Which is probably bad motive, but there we go.
Icheb was such a good boy. He was such a good boy. He was a sexy little kid. I wanted to sleep with myself back then. I was like, so... He was. I go back and look at those episodes. I'm like 21 years old and fit as a fiddle, and like I don't have an ounce of fat on me. I'm like, look at that guy. Oh man. It's a very hard thing to do to hide. I always say this, but it's difficult to hide an erection in a Starfleet uniform, and that's another thing that you don't really think about a lot in space movies. You got to remember that.
Yes.
I liked that Space Station 76 looked at all those things, the sexuality, and I really loved the sexiness of this simple movie. And after this episode is over, I'm going to go rewatch it.
Sounds good. Okay, so we shall let it go.
Be free.
Be free. So Manu, it's been fantastic having you on the show, our first Christmas show. I'm sure everyone has enjoyed hearing from you, and I'm sure they would love to know what they can expect to see you in next. What projects do you have brewing right now?
There's a bunch of stuff coming out. Anyway, people can follow me at Manu Intiraymi on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And some of the new stuff I have coming out next year, I'm working on the Circuit film. If you go to thecircuitfilm.com, you can see all about it. We raised $100,000 on Kickstarter to launch this sci-fi anthology series that we're going to try to launch with a feature-length film, episode 1. And it's a sci-fi comedy the first time around. The cool thing about the Circuit is, in the end, we want to do 10 episodes that all take place in this futuristic city, but are each a different subgenre of science fiction, and keep it on the lighter side of science fiction, actually do like an anthology series that isn't dark. There's so much dark dystopian science fiction. We want to do sci-fi comedy and sci-fi romance and that kind of stuff. That's coming early next year. We'll be directing episode 1, looking for a little more financing and then jumping into that. And then I'm in a bunch of fun movies. We Are Boats comes out next year. Beautiful movie by James Bird. If you guys haven't seen his films, you should. They're adorable and just getting better. Oh, people should really go see Instant. That's the only thing I'm going to ask people to actually do. Go to roddenberry.com and watch Instant. It's a short film that I did a couple years ago, but finally came out on Roddenberry's website and on YouTube. And it's a beautiful little 21-minute short that I guarantee will touch your heart. Go take a look at that.
Wow.
And please share it on social media as well if you enjoy the film, because it's the only way we're going to get people to see it.
Great. Sounds really interesting.
Well, we would definitely do that.
And listeners, if you'd like to follow us, or if you'd like to dispute the outcome of Space Station 76, or you could suggest some other forgotten films for us to discover in our next episodes.
We are Movie Oubliette everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And if you're not sure how to spell Oubliette, it is...
Oubliette.
Gary, can you knock it off with those bells?
Oh, sorry.
Conrad, could you repeat that, please?
Oubliette.
Yes, and if you would like to email us, we are movie.oubliette@gmail.com. And most importantly, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or whatever other podcast platform you are using. It really, really helps us out. And it is the festive season after all.
Okay, thanks to everyone for listening, and I hope everyone has a happy and safe and Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, however you're celebrating. And thanks to our guest, Manu, for being with us today. We really loved having you with us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie Oubliette.
Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
All right. I hope they don't. I hope you guys don't start throwing guests in there.
Never.
No, not so far.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
We review the films others tend to forgive. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
Hello? I've seen it. It's shit.